Yard Arts R Us Painters Club Sunday night. I hope y'all are staying warm. I can't believe what's going to happen to us. It's misty rain here. It hadn't gotten below freezing yet, but already the sidewalks are wet, the streets are wet. So if it dips down below freezing, we're going to have a slick mess. But I'm inside painting. I've painted most of the day, which has been lots of fun. So I hope y'all are staying warm, and maybe you can do some painting. I know I talked to Mary earlier, and they opened up just a little bit today, and then didn't have very many people coming in. So Paula, it was cold, and so they just closed down. And then Monday they're always closed. So I hope you have some blanks. You can get on the website and you can look at all the blanks that they've got and decide which ones you want to do next, and go ahead and order them. And then when this stuff lets up and it gets a little warmer, you can go over and pick them up, or they'll ship them out to you, or whatever. But tonight I am painting He Is Risen, and it has Easter lilies on it, and I did a plaid background. So I'm going to kind of show you all how to do plaid. I only have one extra blank, so it's going to be slightly disjointed because of that, but I think we can get through it, and you'll see what I'm doing with my plaid. I'll show you the things that you're going to need. First off, you're going to need frog tape. This is probably backwards because Mary showed me those tools, but then I still don't know which one to use to reverse it. But in her video today, she used frog tape, and this frog tape is the 3/4 of an inch, or 0.94. I think she was using a wider one today. It comes in all wets, and this is the one that I use most of the time. I bought it at Home Depot. I like it better than the blue painter's tape because the paint does not seep under it. This gives you a really tight seal. If you rub it down, it isn't gonna seep under there very much. So I use frog tape most of the time. I think Mary said she got hers on Amazon, but most of the Ace and Lowe's and Home Depot, those stores, all have frog tape. And I put the lid on it. I'm gonna need it here in just a minute. All right, the colors that I used. My base coat was light purple, number 27. I base coated everything white first because I'm using more pastel colors and I wanted a light background. Sometimes it takes more than 2 coats if you don't base coat first with white. Plus, this had white lilies and the words were going to be white, so that meant I would use less white paint on those. So I base coated first with white. I just sprayed it on there. And then I base coated with my light purple. And I had to use 2 coats, and that's number 27. My next color that I used is I took my light purple and my white, number 35, and I mixed them together, and I got a very, very, very light purple. I probably used 3 parts of white and 1 part of the light purple to get this very, very light. So my first plaid part right here is this very, very light purple, extremely light purple. Then I used a pink that I had mixed, which was half pink and half white. Half shading pink and half white. I didn't want the shading pink, it was too dark, and the pink was too light, so I mixed half and half. And light pink, it just was too light. I tried it first, and it was just too light. So I took my shading pink, which was number 26, and I mixed half white and half shading pink, and I got in between, and so my stripe here is this pink. So those are 2 colors that I mixed. Then I did use, as a little tiny stripe, my shading pink, number 26. And then my other stripe the other way is shading purple, number 28. Shading purple, number 28. My lily was white, but lilies have a warmth to them. So I took my Scarecrow white, which is number 36, and so I added Scarecrow white in with the white. I didn't make it solid, and it's going to be really hard for you to see that through the camera, but I'll show you when I'm painting it how I use the Scarecrow white. But it warms that lily up just slightly. Inside the lily, I used light yellow, number 13, for my rays. And then in the center, I wanted those orange stamens, so I used shading orange, number 17. And I outlined that with shading brown, number 34. My words were white, and I outlined them with navy blue, number 6. The black, I wanted a contrast between my words and outlining my flower with the black, so I used this navy blue, number 6. My Lilies Greenery, I first base coated with mint green, number 9, and then I shaded them with lime green, number 10, and then I outlined them with number 12, dark green. Then I outlined with black for my lilies, which is number 37, our good old standard. And then I used some white highlights, which is 35, our white. So those are the colors that I used on this. It's going to look really pretty if you use a solid color background, but several people had commented about plaid and how I put a lot of plaid on and how to do plaid, so I thought, well, we'd use a plaid background on this and it would give me a chance to teach you how I do plaid, and it would give some extra texture to this, and it doesn't make the words, it doesn't overpower the words. I don't want the words to be overpowered because He is risen is the whole point of this with our Easter lilies. Okay, we'll talk just a little bit about the brushes. Of course, when I base coat, I use a big brush, a big mop brush. This one's a 1/4 inch brush, and I base coat with a 1/4 inch brush. If I'm doing several of them, I'll use a roller. I know Mary uses a roller, and I use a roller if I've got 3 or 4 that I'm doing. But recently I've just been doing 2. So I just base coat with a brush rather than get a roller dirty. For my dry brushing, I use this old, stiff oil painting brush that I've had forever, and it's got paint in it, and it's really stiff, and it's kind of dirty. You could use a stencil brush. If you don't have one of these, you can buy a stencil brush that has real stiff bristles. But I just had this one, and so this is an old oil painting brush that is really stiff bristles. Bristles, I'm sorry. I have a retainer in the bottom of my teeth. Everybody wanted to have braces when they were 40. So when I was 40, I had braces, and so they pulled one of my bottom teeth. So I have this permanent retainer to keep my teeth together. So every once in a while, my tongue gets caught on it, and I say these strange words. But bristles is what I was trying to say. But you want something with real stiff bristles to do this dry brush technique. Then I use several different sizes. Some of the parts of this design are a little bit small, so you're going to need some smaller brushes. So I've got a 2 and a 4 and a 6 round. I use a little flat one for some of my striping, and this one happens to be a 1/4 inch brush. And then our good old staple, my lining brush, my script liner, which if you don't have a script liner, you really need one because they're kind of the staple. You can get away with some of these other brushes, but you just almost have to have a script liner. Okay. Earlier today, I went ahead and I taped off, and I taped using the tape, I guess I better just get a new piece, as the guide. taping this, I put a little piece between each stripe so I get them in the right place. And sometimes for long pieces, I'd put one here and one over here at this end so that I would get my stripes straight. So I taped this off to go on my horizontal stripes, and I've already dry brushed the top part so I could show you how I do the bottom part and then pull this off, and I'm going to do the top part as that's drying. So I take a paper towel, because you need something to pat your brush on. You can use a paper plate, a lid or something, or whatever. But I take this really, really stiff brush, and I took my very, very light. You can see it's just so light. I mean, you can't even, it almost looks white on there, but it's very, very light lilac. And I just dip the bristles in there, getting just a little bit on the tip of my brush, and then I pat it off. And then I'm going to come in here and dry brushing. I'm just going to fill in on my purple, trying not to get it on the white of my lily. And I might get a little bit on there, and if I do, I can easily touch that back up. But I dip it in and then pat it off. And then just very lightly, that's too much, and just pounce it up and down. And you want that purple to show through, but you want that lightness on top of it. And sometimes I pick up more paint right on the paper towel. I don't dip it back in the paint. You can see that. So I'll turn it around this way, and I think you can see it a little bit easier. Okay, I dip it in, and then wipe a lot of it off, and then just come across with this real stiff bristles and a very light touch. Very light touch. And I want to see my other purple through there, but I don't want to see it solid. I want it to be wispy looking, almost a pouncing up and down and striking it across. Okay, that gets that. Now that's going to dry. Put my lid back on this piece. So I'll save that and use it again. Now I'm going to pull this off because I did this earlier today. And so this part is dry, and you can see the effect that I got. How light, it's very wispy looking. It makes a stripe, but at the same time it is not a solid stripe. Now I know Ashley uses baby wipes, and if that stripe went all the way across, I could have used a baby wipe, but I didn't want it to get into my words, and with the brush I could control that. So I'm going to go ahead and pull this tape off here at the bottom. Even though this is not dry for right now, I can pull my tape off, because you want to pull your tape off pretty soon after you paint it. If it does pull up, it'll pull up after it's dry. So if you go ahead and pull your paint up while it's still, your tape up while your paint is still a little wet. So then here I've got my stripes. Now, you could go ahead right now and work on the rest and just have stripes in the background, and it would look really good. You just want some kind of detail or a little bit of difference in the back, and that would be great. But I'm going to make some vertical stripes. So I know this is wet, so I'm going to try to stay off that for just a minute. And I'm going to start at the corner of the cross to get my first vertical. Now I found in doing this, this cross is very slightly wider at the bottom than it is at the top. So you're going to have to adjust these verticals very slightly. But I've got my first one down, so then I just take a little piece and I stick it right next to it. I don't use a full piece. Stick that one down. Move that little placement one. I want to rub on those and make sure they're stuck down good, because that way the paint does not go under them. Then I'm going to come over here to this side and do the other side before I do my verticals that on the long stretch, because it's much harder to get them straight. So I just use the corners of the cross right here to match up. And then I'll put my, move this over a little bit, I'll put my little spacer in. That's too long. Wasting tape. And if you get any paint on your white words or your lilies, it's easy to touch it up. It's not a big deal. So don't worry about that part. Okay, so I've got them on that part of the cross. Now, see, that's so lightly painted. It's just almost dry. So I'm going to be fine in putting my tape over it. So I've got a piece here, and I'm going to have to fudge ever so slightly because it's such a long piece, and like I told you, it flares out a little bit. So, see if I can do this without getting it twisted up. Now the one in the middle, I put it at the top, and then I pulled on it slightly, and that straightened it out, and that gave me my straight line in the center. Because as you see, it's real close with my little cheap tape piece. Okay, so I want to rub these down really good. Make sure I've got all of those edges down. Okay, I'll wash my brush out, and I'm going to dry it off really good because I want that dry brush So then I'm going to take this pink that I mixed up, and I'm going to get some on the lid to pick up. Didn't get much on the lid, but a little bit. Okay, so I just tap a little bit, and then I wipe it off on my paper towel, and then this is about the same value as the purple, so it's not going to stand out a lot, but it's going to give a little bit of texture there. So when I come to my letters, I'm just very carefully putting that dry brush in. And I know I'll have to go back and touch them up a little bit, but that's okay, because it's not going to be touched up a lot. Same thing about my flower. I'm going down this long length, and I'm not pushing my brush down much. I'm letting it kind of ride right over the top, so you don't get a lot of color on there. It's just picking up a little bit of the color. And if I think I don't have enough, I can go back and put some more on. Go in between my leaves here for my petals. And I'm going to have outlines on there, so if I don't get right up against the edge, that's okay. But it's called dry brushing, and you're just brushing with your brush almost dry. You've wiped off the majority of the paint that's on there. Okay, I'm going to turn it around so I can get up to the top. You can see where I've already gotten. See, it's pretty easy to tell. And most of the time I'm picking the paint up off of my paper towel rather than in the paint itself. So I don't have much paint on that brush at all. And this goes pretty fast. Hope you all have had a great Valentine's today. I got a wonderful bunch of flowers. My grandson brought it over from my daughter and grandchildren. He went and picked them out himself, and I got so tickled at him. He said he was standing in line behind a couple, and the man and woman were talking, and the man said, "Now let's get the ones that aren't open real much, the ones that are more like buds, and they last longer that way." So when it was his turn, he went up and he told the guy, he said, "I want the ones that are like the buds so that they'll last longer." So he got me the prettiest pink and creamy colored roses, and then I got a box of Russell Stover candy and the sweetest card. It made up because I didn't get to go see Smokey today because I missed my COVID test on Tuesday because of the funeral. So I had to take it on Friday, but they don't have the results back, and they won't have till tomorrow. So I'll get my results back tomorrow, and if I'm negative, which I'm sure I'm going to be, then I get to see him on Tuesday. So we'll celebrate Valentine's then. All right, so all of that's done, so now I'm going to pull my tape off. You use up a lot of tape doing this, but that's okay. Anything for your art. All right, so there you've got, now this is the same way that you've done for the buffalo plaid when you use the same color. I just used two different colors. Now, to make it more like a real plaid rather than just a buffalo plaid, buffalo is two directions, I'm going to take my script liner and I'm going to take my, let's see, which way to go. I'm going to take my shading pink number 26. And with my script liner, I'm going to do vertical lines right beside, I'm leaving a little bit of space between that dry brush line that I made. And it's a solid line with my script liner. Somebody said something about how did you get your lines straight? Well, I brace with my little finger. That's one way. And then I don't move my wrist. I either move back from my elbow or I move from my shoulder so that you can get those long, straight, fluid lines. And your wrist is locked. And you're just moving back from your wrist. Your wrist is locked, your little finger is bracing you, and then you can move your whole body back, you can move your elbow back, but move from the shoulder. I think a lot of people try to do it like this, and you'll get zigzaggy lines or not smooth lines when you do. So if you just pull back from your shoulder, and that'll give you a pretty straight line. Now, when I've got these real long ones, I do it in segments. I don't try to do those long ones. And if it wiggles a little bit, that's not any big deal. That's the hand-painted part of it. So I'm going to do the upper part and then turn it around to do my lower part. I think I can get this one. And sometimes on these long runs you run out of paint. So I go back to where I had already started about middle way and I pick it back up. I made chili today, and we all had chili. When we were in Kentucky for the funeral, my aunt gave me a can of her homemade Kentucky tomatoes, which makes our chili just fabulous when you get used to chili made with homemade tomatoes. And the tomatoes up there are very acidy, and so tomatoes here don't taste like tomatoes from up there. So I had 1 can, so I made chili today. Oh, it was so good. Made me feel so good and warm. All right, so I'm gonna come down this way. See, most of this one is hidden by the flour, so there's not a lot. Not a lot to do down there. All right, so here are my shocking pink or my shading pink lines that I have put on. And they're just slightly over from the tape line. Maybe 1/8 of an inch over. And you can see they're not perfect by any means, but that's the nice hand painted part. So now to finish up the plaid, you want to get the same type little fine line, but going the opposite direction. So you're going to get your horizontal lines. So I used the shading purple. Come on, lid, get on there. Okay, so I've got shading purple. Got to wash my brush out good because I'm going to use that same script liner, so I've got to wash it out. Closer so you can see it. Move my tape out of the way. I think that would help. There we go. Alright, so I get my script liner with my shading purple, and I went to the right, so I'm going to go below that line with this vertical line. Oh, this is going to be horizontal because I got it turned this way. I find I can work better when I'm pulling back towards me rather than pushing away. And I go right over the top of my shading pink line. You think about woven fabric and that those colors interweave between each other. Lines go in the opposite direction. So I'm going to have a long run here because this one is pretty long. So I'm going to start way over here and pull back from my shoulder. And I got all the way before I could re-dip. Hair hanging here. There we go. Got twisted up. Okay, so that I don't get my hand in this one, I'm going to let that dry a minute. So I'm going to come up here and do the one up here. And that'll dry enough by the time I get back down there that I won't get my hand in it. I usually let things dry from one step to the next, and I find it's just a little bit easier. I don't want to put my hand in the wet paint. somebody today on one of the questions asked how you get the long straight outlines, but you don't use your wrist, you use your arm from your shoulder, and that's one of the best things that I can tell you. And it takes practice. And get you a piece of cardboard or a scrap piece of wood and just practice making long straight thin lines. A lot of times I'll brace with this little finger, and I'll bring this little finger down, and that helps too. But a script liner also helps. Using the right kind of brush makes a big difference. Okay, so just got one more line here to go, and I'll have those lines done, and then my plaid will be done. All right, plaid's done. Plaid's done. Okay, so while that plaid is drying, I'm going to work on my leaves down here. I coated first number 9 mint green, and I put 2 coats of mint green on there. Now I got just a little bit of pink on that leaf, so I'm going to come in with my mint green and touch up right along the edge where I got some pink when I was dry brushing. I didn't get much on there, but I did get some, so I'm touching up the little area where I got that pink. Doesn't take a lot. See if I got any up at the top. Only right here. Just a little, very little bit. Okay. So I didn't have to touch up much of that mint green. Now I'm going to take my lime green for my shading. And since I'm up at the top, I'll start up here. I'm going to take that lime green and I'm going to shade 1/2 of those leaves. Just a little bit of the lime, and I'm putting it on the bottom side because that side is darker usually. So I'm adding my lime green just on the bottom. These have a CNC line that you're going to be able to see, and I just added a little lime green there. I'll turn it around to get to these leaves, and on one side only for my lime green of my stems coming down, and the bottom side of this leaf, and this one is folded over, so I'm going to come up the side and then in here, And I want this to look folded over, so I'm going to bring this down a little bit like that. And then the outside of this leaf on both sides. And I'm going to put a little right down the middle of it. And then one side of this one, right along here. And then the back side of this one. And there's not a right or wrong way to shade this in. You just want to get two colors in there. This one is kind of folded over too. You all may hear my dog whining. I've got him put up and he's not happy. They've been real upset over the cold weather. They hadn't liked that. Okay. And then a little bit line up here on these little guys. And that's all my lime shading. And the next thing, I'm going to take a really small script liner and outline those. I'm going to let them dry just a little bit. And while that is drying, I need to touch up in my white, because I've got a little bit in my He Is Risen. So I'm going to take my white, and I've got a little bit of pink and a little bit of purple in my He Is Risen. Not much, just to touch up a few places that I got that on the edge. And like I said, I'd already put a base coat of white on, so I didn't have to put but one layer of white paint. Okay. And while I've got the white out, I've got a little bit to touch up here in my white flower there. Let's see if I got it down there, right there in the corner. Okay. Now while I've got white on my brush, I don't like to wash my brushes a lot. I'm going to go ahead and take my Scarecrow white. It's getting pretty thick. I'll have to add some water to it. But I'm going to get some Scarecrow white, and I'm going to add Scarecrow white on both sides of that stamen in my flower. I'm just adding a little bit of Scarecrow white on this flower. Think of it as shading for the flower. And it's so subtle, you won't probably be able to see it with the camera, because it's such a subtle amount of color that's really being put on there. It's just very little. There's hardly any color. But in person, you do notice it. So, get me over here and see. Get that closer to me, and then you can see it better. So I'm just coming down and adding just a little Scarecrow white on both sides of the stamen. and then right on the edge of the flower. Think of it as shading for the flower. And I'm leaving most of the white showing. Okay, that's all the scarecrow white that I'm going to put on there. And that will really make the flower look a little bit more realistic. I'm going to hold it up. I don't know that you can see it or not. We'll see how close I can get. You can see the little bit. It's going to be hard to see. All right, while that is drying, I just need to wipe my fingers off. I got some scarecrow white on me. I'm going to outline my He Is Risen with my navy blue. And I won't outline all of it. I'm just going to outline part of it for you because it takes a while. I'm using a small script liner for it. Let's see, I'm going to come over here and do the he, because I think we'll see it really good. There we go. So, just right in that CNC line, I'm putting my navy. And you could outline with black, and I think it would be fine. I just thought the navy was not quite as harsh looking for the words. It still makes the words show up. But I just think the navy, it's a little softer. I'm just letting that small, this is a 0 brush. I'm letting it ride right in that CNC line. And it's just falling right in that line. And if there's some little crumbs or something, I take a wire brush and I brush this before I start painting, just in case there's any little crumbs in that line and your brush hangs up on them. Most of the time they're nice and clean, but every once in a while there'll be some little crumbs in there. I also think a really dark charcoal gray would have been as good as the navy. I hope you don't have to go to work tomorrow and drive in this slick roads. I know the schools was out anyway, and then they're going to be, at least Pearland schools, they're going to have asynchronous learning on Tuesday. So I'm hoping most of you don't have to get out. Now see here, I'll have to touch this up. That white right there wasn't completely dry, so I transferred it from so I'll have to touch that little bitty place up right there. That's why I really like to let it dry between one color to the next, because then you don't have to do these touch-ups. But you can't really do that doing a live. I hope y'all saw Mary's this afternoon on her porch carrots. Oh, they're so cute. I wish I had a porch. I just have a little bitty opening, I guess you'd say, beside my front door. I don't really have a porch to put them on. But oh, that was so cute. A big one and a little one. And one of them's polka dot and the other one's buffalo plaid. They were really cute and fast. They didn't take long at all. And she did that on the Yard Arts R Us page, not on the Painters Club. So if you missed it, go back to Yard Arts R Us and look at it. And those of you that are not in the Academy, Mary and I did a color mixing video Thursday for the Academy members. And so if you're not a member of the Academy, you might want to think about, it's going to open up again, I think in March. And you might want to think about joining, because there's extra stuff in the Academy that you don't get in just the Painters Club. Okay, see how that looks with my heat? See what a difference it makes when you outline them? Now, I'm not going to outline the rest of those because there's not a reason for me to continue outlining those for you to really see. That's just kind of a waste of your time. However, I am going to take my gray and I'm going to highlight my letters with gray. So I will show you that. So take the gray, and I'll come over here to my he, and I'm just going to come down with just a straight line there. One here. I got a hair on the end of that. There we go. I don't think I got it. And I'm going to come around my E, base, and come around this H right here. Just adding a very little bit of gray. Not much, just enough to highlight. See? Just that much. Okay, now I'm going to work on my flower. My lines down the center are yellow. And yellow and purple, or yellow and violet, are complementary colors. So that's why I picked the purple for the background, so this yellow would pop. So I'm putting yellow in the center of each one of my, I think these are kind of like veins of the lily. And I'm going to get a yellow, these little buds that are here, I'm going to get a yellow top to them. See that yellow? And yellow here. That's all the yellow I need. So I've got the yellow there. Now while that is drying, I'm going to take my dark green and my little script liner. And I'm going to use my little script liner on my green leaves. See if you all can see it there. Okay. just going in that CNC line with my green. Had to wrap my pipes. I haven't had to do that by myself in a long time, but since my husband is in the nursing facility, he usually took care of that. So my grandson came over and I couldn't find the pipe wrap, but I was at Target and I got all of them bathing suits for their Easter basket because they've all grown so much. So I was over by the swimming stuff, and here was pool noodles, and I thought, hey, well, that's just the same thing as pipe wrap. So I got me a big blue pool noodle, came home and got me a steak knife and cut it up and put it around my outside faucets. And then just to make sure, I put a towel and plastic bag and duct taped it all down. So I think my outside pipes will be all right. I'm hoping so anyway. Now the ones in the attic, I don't know. We'll have to see. So I hope you all were able to do that. I got coats for my dogs to put on to go outside, and they think that's quite funny, is putting a coat on to go outside. But Meg's come over and taken Penny for a walk twice in her coat, and she thought that was great. I didn't take her for a walk. It was too cold for me to go out there and walk. But Meg thought that was fun. Meg's 13, so she didn't get cold, she said. Now I wanted to show you around the bottom of these leaves. They kind of end kind of abruptly, kind of squared off, I guess is the best way of saying it. So I wanted to show you what I did to add to that so that it made it look a little more naturalistic. When you follow these CNC lines, it's just paint by number. It's just so easy. You don't really have to think about it much at all. You just put that paintbrush in that groove and go. All right, let me show you. Now see how at the bottom it's real abrupt looking? So what I did is I added some extra in dark green, some little grass. I just came up here with my brush and I just added in extra little grass coming down so that it looked like there was grass growing around the stalk. See? I just added those extra little lines right at the bottom. Now I still have to do the outlining for the rest of the green. And I'll do this one right here, and then I'm gonna think my yellow is dry enough maybe that I can come in there. Because you want each area to dry, then you don't have to do so much touch up. It's not going to be dry right there. The bottom green outlining is completed. So I still have to outline the top, but I'm going to wait on that. And wash my brush, and I'm going to get my shading orange. And with this shading orange, I'm going to put those little dots that are in the center of the flower. They're the little pollen area. What's that called? I've forgotten what that's called. And then I'm putting a little bit of orange at the tip of each one of these buds, just to give it a little bit more interest. Here. Dots in with the orange. And I'm using the shading orange. It's a real bright orange, so that's going to pop. And then I'm putting just a little bit at the tip of each one of those little yellow buds. Didn't take much orange. And then I'm using shading brown on each side of my yellow. Let that come out to nice points. My friends in Kentucky all said that they were going to get 6 to 8 inches of snow tonight. That same system it's going all the way across the United States, I guess. Everybody's going to get it at some point. And they don't have a lot of equipment to take care of bad roads, but they get snow every year for a little bit, so they have better equipment than we do here in Texas. It's going to be record setting. I just hope I don't lose all my plants outside. I love my outdoor plants, so I don't want to lose all of them. Okay, so see, I've gotten the brown around that. And I'm going to take just a little bit of brown in my circles. I'm just adding, it's too wet right now really to add much brown, but I'm just adding just a little bit to give a definition between those spots. It's really too wet because it hasn't dried enough, so I'm not getting any definition there. That has to dry. But, you know, I'm going to put those in there. And I'll come back in and outline this one with brown. So the last thing I have to do is outline my flower in black. And outline this flower in black. Finish up my outlining in my navy for my words. And I'll be done. I'll pull my finished one up. Let you look at it again. Because after I outlined in black in those CNC lines all of around my lily, and then when I highlighted the gray in the words, I put just a little bit of gray, just a little bit in the lily itself. So I think this is an awfully pretty cross to put in the yard. Of course, he is risen is a reason for this season anyway. I came in and I did some white highlights along the edge. I thought about shading the entire edge with a darker purple, and I think that would have been nice too, but I didn't want it to take away from the plaid, so I just put the white highlights. Let me look on my phone. Sometimes I can get it to work and sometimes I can't. And see if I can answer any questions if and see it ain't coming up. And see, I'm seeing the questions or the answers there, or comments, but I'm not seeing them on my phone. I do something wrong and I'm not sure what it is, but oh, here, now I got it to come up. Now turn my sound off. Let's see who's with us tonight. Debbie's here. Thank you, Debbie, for watching. You watch every time, and I so much appreciate it. I hope you're painting, and I want you to post what you're painting too. I love to see what everybody else does. Carolyn, well, confident. My mother was an artist. She was a watercolor artist, and I've painted since I was a little girl, because she would be painting. She painted plein air a lot, and when she was doing oils, and so she would go outside. She'd go down at the lake and she'd paint at the lake, or she'd be painting out in the woods, and of course I had to go with her as an only child. And so she'd give me paints and brush, and I'd sit there and paint too, and she'd tell me how to paint, and I painted from the time I was little. And then I majored in art in college, and so I have my undergraduate in studio art with an emphasis on teaching, and then I went back for my master's, and I got my master's in weaving and textiles. So really I'm a textile artist, but I love to paint too. So I've been painting my whole life. So you could say, 60, 70 years of painting. So the more you paint, the better you get. And it's like Mary says, you can teach anybody to paint. You learn to write your name. If you can write your name, you can paint, because writing is drawing, and painting is just drawing with a brush. Have I had my vaccine yet? No, I have not. My husband had his, and I really thought that maybe his facility, because they got the vaccine, and as new people come into their facility, they're able to vaccinate them. And since I'm considered an essential caregiver and I have to have the COVID test twice a week, I really thought that maybe they would have a vaccine available for us. But this Friday they said no. The CDC said because we were not employees, and because some of us are not the right age, some of us are, I am for 1B, for the list 1B, because I'm not a healthcare worker and I don't have any pre-existing conditions. So I call my doctor and she has me on Herman's list, and at some point in time, I think they will call me or they'll email me, because they had to turn in my email, and they'll give me an appointment, but who knows when that'll be. And I just don't have time or patience or energy to get on the phone or to get on the internet every day and to sit there for hours on end trying to sign up and everything. So I'll get it when it's time. You know, I kind of believe that when God thinks I need it, He'll make the way, and somebody will call and say, come down and have your first test, and that's what I'll do. But, you know, I'll get it sometime. Let's see. Joy said, I shake so much I use a ruler. Practice a lot more, and use it from your shoulder. Your shoulder doesn't shake. It's a ball joint in there, and it doesn't shake. You're shaking because you're using your wrist. So pull back from your shoulder, and you won't shake. Mary said she likes the white and the scarecrow white. It's very subtle, but I think up close it really makes a difference. I hope that you all were able to see that. Zelma, thank you for looking tonight, watching us. I hope you're staying warm. Carla, I like it too. I think this is a really nice blank, and I think it's going to be real pretty in the yard. I like the purple and the yellow combination. Carolyn, glad you're with us tonight. Kelly, thank you for watching tonight. I hope you all paint. I hope you stay warm. I hope you don't have any trouble from this. And next Sunday night, I think I'm going to be doing eggs. I got to get over and get the eggs, because I have an egg from last year that I didn't ever get done last year, but I don't have one of the new eggs, and I think I'm supposed to paint one of the new eggs next week. But that's going to be fun, and so if the weather breaks a little bit, I'll go over to the store and get some eggs and get ready for next week. So you all have a good week, stay warm, and I'll see you next Sunday night.